This just happened to me a few nights ago, and I'm still shaken up, so bear with me. I am a female bartender at a small cafe that doubles as a venue. During the day we serve coffee and lunch, and at night we have a full bar with bands, comedy shows, etc. On this night, there was an open mic comedy show. Not a lot of comedians showed up, so we ended up closing up shop early, and I was ready to go home. I had a patron come in and order a single beer during the comedy show. He was acting nervous, but being a female bartender, I get male customers that are shy and don't want to talk to women, so I didn't think much about it. He sat down, sipped his beer, and watched the show. Since we closed early, everyone was pretty much gone and I wanted to lock up and clean so I could get home. After I escorted the last couple out of the bar and got ready to lock the door, I see the man from earlier walk down the back hallway and into the men's restroom. Not even a minute later, he burst through the door yelling, "Hurry, come back here, I need help." I stood at the opposite end of the hallway and asked him what was wrong. "The toilet is overflowing. There's water all over the floor. Help me clean this up." I could tell that something was wrong, and I replied, "It's okay, man. It happens. I'll mop it up. I'm just trying to close up right now." He continued to argue with me, trying to get me to come into the bathroom with him as I stood about 20 feet away down the hallway. Finally, he walks towards me very aggressively and tries to grab my arm. "You need to come back here now," he says. I immediately put my hands up in front of me so he can't come towards me any closer, and I tell him that he needs to leave. He walks outside, and I lock the door behind him. I check the bathroom, and it's completely spotless. No water on the floor at all. I flush the toilet and the urinal, and they're both working fine. I start to get nervous, and I take my large pocket knife and clip it to the waistband of my pants, just in case. As I'm cleaning our espresso machine and putting toppers on the liquor bottles, I hear a tapping noise. I look up at the front of the store, which is one big window that has a few curtains covering it. The same man is tapping on the window, waving at me and laughing like a maniac. I watch him walk over to the front door and pull on it. It doesn't open since I had locked it after he left. He starts screaming and pounding on the glass saying, "Open the fucking door. I'm going to fucking kill you." Fight overcame flight at this point, and I walked around the corner about 6 feet from the door. I picked up my knife and locked eyes with him and yelled, "I'm calling the cops. Get the fuck out of here." He smiled and walked out of view of the window. At this point, all of my adrenaline just crashed. I locked myself in the office and called 911 crying, explaining that I'm alone and a man tried to lure me into the bathroom and that he was outside trying to get into my bar. I waited an hour and a half. No police showed up. I called my boyfriend and he drove up to the shop. My manager watched the security cameras from home, making sure the man didn't come back. I did the deposit and immediately drove home, my boyfriend following close behind me. Recently, my male busboy has been coming into work with me so I'm not alone, and the managers have been keeping an eye on the security cameras while I'm working. And just a side note, the police never showed up. A few years ago, I lived near a large expansion of national forest that was riddled with small winding trails and a large set of roads that had been set up for forestry. It was about a half a mile walk from my home to the Red Road, as I like to call it, a relatively well-kept lava rock pathway. Regardless of the season, even in the beginnings of a snowstorm, I will spend at least an hour a day out there. When I got my puppy, I easily integrated him into my walks. Whippets loved following a bike or hitting up a hiking trail, sun, rain, or snow. He would follow me soundlessly, generally on a leash while near the houses, then off the leash once we got deep into the woods. he was like my shadow, and though he would occasionally bound ahead, he would stop and turn back to look at me after he got a bit too far ahead. One day I was out later in the day. The sun was starting to set, and it had grown chilly, to the point that I had to put a coat on the dog from out of my pack, and decided to cut my trip short. As I was nearing civilization, I called my dog and leashed him up, thinking I may have heard a car. We rounded the corner, coming out of the copse of trees and into the open ground. I slow my walk instantly when I see an older black car parked near the entrance where the pavement turns to gravel. People would very occasionally park near the entrance, but for some reason, this car causes me to pause. It's a bright black, with oversized silver rims and a small spoiler on the back. There's a man with a baseball cap leaning against the open passenger side window. He gestures violently to the people in the car, and he speaks to them in an angry tone, although I'm too far away to hear, but it's enough that I instantly decide to steer clear of the group. Unfortunately, there is no way out but the path that they parked on. My dog is a little spooked, and is pushing against my leg and looking up at me. It doesn't help settle my nerves. I've seen people park there before, I reason, but I get a distinct impression that they may be dealing something, very common where I'm at. I don't want to be caught up in the middle, so I skirt along the road, as far from the vehicle as I can. Even then, walking on the edge of the trees, they turn to look at me, and their angry voices cease momentarily. I hear them say something about my dog, but I just keep walking, doing what I can to ignore them. I feel my heart rattling in my chest, for reasons I'm unsure of. Something feels off about them, but I'm unsure. Once they're out of earshot, and I've walked quite a distance from them, I put my headphones back in, trying to lessen my nervousness. I'm looking down at the pavement, trying to refocus myself, when my dog begins to pull back on the leash. I give him a tight tug forward and tell him to heel. I keep walking, feeling strange, and making my pace a little more brisk. Again, my dog pulls on the leash. I frown at him in annoyance, unaccustomed to his disobedience. I pull him forward one more time, but this time, when I see his head turn back to look behind us, it catches my attention. I rip out my headphones and stare back the way we came. My dog lets out a high-pitched yip, looking back and then up at me. The man with the baseball cap is a short ways behind us. I grip the leash tighter and instantly spin around, quickly leading my dog towards the subdivision where the houses are. I figure that the guy is just walking home. No big deal. But that doesn't do anything to dispel the slight edge of panic I'm beginning to feel. Something is not right. Whippet keeps looking back, and I have to tug him along. The hair bristles on his back, and he lets out a few fearful yips. My dog rarely barks, and he loves strangers, so his reaction only feeds my inner paranoia. I steal a glance over my shoulder and realize, much to my horror, he's getting even closer. I can see his face more clearly, though he's still a distance away. I begin to rationalize that I'm simply being paranoid. Despite this thought, I reach my hand behind me and into my pack, fishing my cell out of my side pocket and slipping it into my jeans. The man's presence is making me anxious now, so I take the first right onto a gravel road that isn't even mine. I feel a rush of relief, thinking he'll head on the main road, and it will be fine. But it isn't fine. I hear the crunch of gravel behind me, and the dog is yanking wholeheartedly at the leash. My adrenaline suddenly whooshes into my bloodstream, and I feel my hands get clammy. No, he must just live down the road, I think, trying to soothe myself. It's a loop, the road I picked, so I know that it goes back to the main road, toward where I live. But as I near the end of the loop, I chance a glance back. The man in the baseball cap and a dark shirt. He's still behind me, keeping his distance, but still seemingly closer than before. Full-blown panic erupts. I know now that he appears to be following me. For what intent, I don't know. I can try to get to a house, but most of them have fences and gates, and people don't take too well to trespassers. I quickly pull my phone out of my pocket and flip it open, selecting home. It rings several times, making my blood pump erratically. My mom is home, but disabled and often gets tired and falls asleep. It's about to go to voicemail, but she picks up sounding groggy. "Someone's following me," I blurt out as quietly as I can. She instantly asks me where I am, and I whisper into the phone, carefully glancing over my shoulder. He's very close now, maybe 15 feet, and my dog is going crazy. She says she'll be right there. I walk as fast as I can without running, and I realize that the man behind me is also walking faster, and instead of increasing the distance between us, it remains the same. The houses are far back from the gravel road, so I don't know where to go. I could try to get up to a house and pound on a door, but then I wonder about that black car, and if they had something to do with it. What if he calls them and they come too? I am panicking, but I know my mom isn't far from me, so I start to jog, and my dog is keeping up, but constantly looking back. Suddenly, a large truck comes into view. A huge wave of dust is plummeting behind it. It makes a very rapid halt in front of me, and I look back to see the man in the baseball cap sprinting into a yard to the left, running over someone's lawn, and then disappearing behind a house. My mom is getting out of the truck and comes over to me, saying breathlessly, "Is that him? Is that the guy that was following you?" I nod. There's no sight of him now. He's gone, having fled between the houses and probably onto a main road. We get into the truck, and my mom is red-faced and panicked, but she seems to be slowly calming down. "I don't want you going out anymore," she says, looking over at me. She starts driving us home, but I can't help wondering if that man in the baseball cap will still be standing out in the road. When I look back, the gravel path is empty, except for the haze of dust we've left behind. I didn't go out for weeks, and when I finally convince my mom to let me go, I have to pack a knife in my back to placate her. Even then, every time I walk to the open trail where I saw the black car, I always get nervous and somewhat angry. Angry that a stranger tried to make me afraid of the one thing that I really love. I'm a 21-year-old senior in college, living with 3 other girls in an old one-story house. We're located about a 15-minute walk from the main campus, and the majority of our neighbors are college students. That being said, this town is notorious for being a little, well, sketchy. Millie is home to one of the first insane asylums built in America. After the majority of it being closed down / abandoned for years, the final building was shut down about a month ago, and the remaining patients were released. Now, I doubt this directly correlated with the creepy experiences, but I am not the only one who has interesting encounters with strangers since the release in this town. 2 nights ago, after getting off work at 11:30, I came home to my roommates getting ready to go for a night out. I realize now how stupid it was, but we often had an open door policy, free for anyone to come in and visit as they please. We would lock the door at night, but the one time we forgot really came to bite me in the ass. Around midnight, I was hopping into the shower as my roommates were heading out the door. We said our goodbyes, and I told them I would be meeting up with them later. I had just stepped out of the shower when I heard what sounded like the front door slamming shut. I automatically assumed one of the girls had forgotten something, so I called out their names. No response. I then hear footsteps in the hallway. I call out again. No response. Fear and dread came over me, and I immediately grabbed my clothes and ran into the bedroom. I threw my clothes on, leaned my ear to the door, and waited in silence to hear if someone was in the house. I hear nothing. I decided that it must have been one of my roommates grabbing something and leaving again, so I head into the living room to get my phone. 6 missed calls, and it's still ringing. My roommate, Carrie, was on the other end. I answered and immediately could hear her in a panicked voice. "Leah, are you in the house?" I replied with, "Yes, why, Carrie?" "You need to get out. Sam drove by and saw a man walking through the front door. He called the police, but you need to leave." I shit my pants. Nothing was going through my head besides pure adrenaline and fear. I wasn't sure of the man's intentions, but I sure wasn't going to wait and find out. While remaining on the phone with my roommate, I bolted out the front door and hid behind my car. I watched the house from afar, waiting anxiously to see any movement. My thought process was not at its finest point, and I realized I probably could have made smarter decisions. As my friends approached in a truck, I sprinted out from behind my car and jumped in the back of their truck bed. Just as I did that, a dark figure scurried off into the woods, running in the opposite direction. I can only assume he had been inching closer to me as I was waiting for them to arrive. I screamed bloody murder, and we floored it out of there. I refused to go back to that house until the police arrived, and it had been triple-checked. There was no signs of anything being touched or stolen, which makes me wonder what the man's intentions were. You can guarantee that I've locked my door every night since. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. If you would like a chance to have your story featured in an upcoming video, make sure you email it to urmaker6260@gmail.com. I hope you're all having a great weekend, and if you missed the announcement of the winners for my giveaway from yesterday, you might want to go check out that video. I'll have a link in the description. The winners have 2 weeks to claim their prize. I really appreciate you all watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. And just remember, it's always scarier if it's true.